Do you have a boss who doesn't like you? Maybe the situation is even so bad you're worried about losing your job. Or you could have the other situation that's just as bad. You have a boss who likes you fine, you get along with them okay, but they don't give you any feedback at all. Maybe you have a peer that you have to work with, you have to exchange information with, and the two of you just don't connect. Worry no more. In this quick tip video, I'm going to give you the ultimate question that can help you bulletproof your career and you can use to get essential information from bosses or peers. The ultimate question has 4 parts. Part 1, here's what I'm working on. Part 2, here's what I'm looking for. Part 3, here's why I'm asking you. And Part 4, you ask the ultimate question. So again, that's 4 parts. Here's what I'm working on, here's what I'm looking for, here's why I'm asking you, and then you ask. So let's break it down. If we start with Part 1, here's what I'm working on. You have to give people a reason why all of a sudden you're asking for their input. But you also want it to be a fairly routine and non-threatening thing that doesn't sound overly important. If it sounds like you're working on a career plan or a life strategy, it's too big and it puts too much emphasis. You want it to be something important, but kind of short term. So you'd say something like, I'm working on a quarterly action plan, or I'm working on a project plan, or I'm putting together an account plan and I'm looking for a couple of items to focus on. Make it reasonably short term, not yearly, monthly or quarterly is good. So that's Part 1. Here's what I'm working on. Now we go to Part 2. That answers the question, and here's what I'm looking for. Use 3 things, either input, ideas, or perspectives. Input, ideas, and perspectives are kind of non-personal. They're concrete, but they're non-personal. You're not asking for opinions or feelings, just ideas, perspectives, input. Very sort of generic things. Part 3 explains, here's why I'm asking you. This is a statement of respect. You don't have to like this person you're asking, or think they're particularly talented or competent, but you do have to indicate that you recognize they're good at something. Otherwise, you'd look pretty foolish asking them for help. So Part 3 might sound something like this. Bob, you've got a lot of experience in this area. Or, Sue, I know you know project management really well. Or, Ellen, I know you've worked with government agencies for years. If you're asking for help about another coworker, you might say, Jim, you've worked with Bob for a long time. So Part 3 sets up a statement of respect that explains why you're going to ask them for help. And that brings us to Part 4. This is the part where you actually ask. And the way you do it is you're going to ask for 2 key things. Let me explain why. When you're dealing with people who don't give you feedback or don't communicate well with you, there could be a lot of reasons. Maybe they're not giving it to you because they're afraid that if they give you criticisms, they don't want to hurt your feelings. Maybe they feel like if they say anything, you'll get really mad and it would damage future relationships. Maybe they really don't care. Or maybe they don't think about you at all. Or maybe, if we're really going to be suspicious, you may think they want you to fail. So the strategy to the ultimate question is to make it easy for them to give you the information and difficult for them to deny you the information. If you ask a very big, broad, open-ended question or an unquantified question, it becomes really big. It's too much thinking. That's too big a database for them to go through. But when you narrow it down to 2 things, not 1, because 1, again, makes it sound overly important, just 2 things, it limits the scope of the database. They don't have to go that far, but they got to do a little thinking, and they focus on the number 2. So Part 4 might sound like this. I know there are a lot of things we should be working on, but if you had to pick the top 2, what would the top 2 things be that I should focus on over the next quarter? Or you could say, I know there are many to-do items that I have to track, but in your opinion, what are the top 2 items I should keep at the top of my list while I'm working on this project? Or, Bob has expectations of everybody in his department to do everything really well, but you know him pretty well. What would you recommend are the top 2 things I should be doing or thinking about when I'm working with Bob? Or, there are a lot of things to track, but what are the top 2 items I should prioritize? Or, what are the top 2 things I should measure all the time to make sure I'm getting the job done well? Try to drill down a little bit for specifics if you can, asking what exact actions or activities or tasks should you be focused on? What measurements should you be looking at so that you know if you've succeeded? So again, there's your 4 parts of the ultimate question. Number 1, here's what I'm working on. Again, not too big, not too huge. It's a project or a plan. Number 2, here's what I'm looking for, ideas, inputs, or perspectives. Here's why I'm asking you, because you've got a lot of experience, or you know somebody better, or you know this arena. And the number 4 is you ask, what are the top 2 things? Now here's a final tip which can really help you. Send an email note to the person you've talked to saying thanks. And there's 2 groups of people here, and it helps you with both. For people who were really helpful and wanted to be, it shows you really listened to them and that they were really useful to you. That makes it much more likely they'll help you again in the future. For people who you feel may be trying to sabotage you a little or maybe aren't trying to be helpful, sending them an emailed message creates a dated message verifying what they told you. So in the case of a boss who maybe isn't very supportive, later on, if they criticize you or put something in a performance appraisal and bring up an issue that they never mentioned before, you've kind of got evidence to say, well, gee, how come that didn't come up before? Follow up often with these people to see how you're doing. The ultimate question is an indispensable tool you can use with your boss, your peers, your spouse, or your kids. Use it often, and please email me with any questions or successes you've had using it. And keep looking around the website. You'll find a lot more tools there now, and we're adding more every week.